I'm sure you can't say too much, but can you tell us a little bit about bringing that to the aeroplane, about what it is? And you described it as a cutting edge weapon. Um, what did it do for the capabilities of the tornado community and for the Luftwaffe?
Well, it did a number of things. First of all, obviously, with every day going by, that platform gets less and less survivable.
Mm.
Um, so what it affords you is to to stay out of the thick of the enemy air defenses and just launch your standoff weapons and let them do their job. At ranges that you would you're on your own with say a JDAM or an LGB, you would never be able to reach because that weapon creates an extra 200 miles of range
Mm.
uh, in that neighborhood. It obviously depends a bit on what the profile is programmed into the weapon. If it goes medium level, if it goes low level, if it pulls all the tricks in the book or just follows a couple of GPS points. There is a wide array of options how you can employ that weapon to a higher or lower fidelity, I would call it. So that is obviously in that platform highly appreciated.
Mm.
Um, the second thing is that the the cruise missile itself, that's one part of the equation. But the warhead that is in that weapon is is a second set of capability that it brings to the fight. Because for one, the warhead is fairly large. Secondly, this weapon is immensely accurate if you use it to its full capability. You could only target it against a GPS coordinate. Then it will hit as well as the quality of the GPS is in that in that spot on the planet at that particular time. But if you use it to its full capability, this is a weapon that will really create the pictures that everybody remembers from Desert Storm, where LGBs are flying to windows, which is actually not really possible because you cannot laser windows. So this is more coincident than anything else. But that weapon, you can tell it on the 14th floor, the seventh window from the left, and it will go there. Um, it is it is a very good weapon with a large warhead that has an excellent fusing system. And simulations have demonstrated that this weapon, especially if you employ it in larger numbers, is very survivable.
Mm.
Even more survivable, believe it or not, than its American or British contemporaries. This is really kind of unusual for the Luftwaffe. This is cutting edge technology. And this is surprising. We have lots of it. But that was a mistake. We tried to learn from the Navy. The Navy knew that, say, they want 200 harms. Then they asked for 500 because they knew nobody will give them 500. They will maybe get 200. So we learned from that and we asked for 600 Taurus, thinking we maybe get 100. But somebody, I don't know who, signed that and we got 600 of them.
um, Mattis, I could talk to you all day, but I am limited on time today. But I don't want to end just yet. I wanted to, if it's okay with you, I just want to ask you one or two questions in closing, if that's all right. Before I do that, is there anything you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked you about? There's been a little bit of a delay in between our first and second episode, so I think we covered a lot of ground on the first one. We definitely covered a lot of ground here. But is there anything you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked?
No, I couldn't think of anything off the
Okay.
top of my head.
Okay. Let me ask you then. I'm going to ask your opinion
Yeah.
on some things around Ukraine. And there are
Okay.
two things I wanted to ask your opinion on. You've just talked about Taurus. I wondered if you had seen footage of Scalp, Storm Shadow, which is the RAF the British French equivalent to Taurus, and what your assessment is of not really the capabilities of that weapon, but how long it will take the Russians to play the cat and mouse game of coming up with countermeasures for it and so on and so forth. You just talked about survivability, accuracy, capability, and the impact that Taurus will have. It's a given, isn't it? In wartime, you use your capabilities. Your adversary finds out about them and then counters them. Do you think that those weapon systems are now effectively compromised? Do you think that they would still have utility in the future, or are these sorts of systems pretty easy to deceive, to counter, if you know what to do?
Well, the answer to all these questions, actually to any question concerning the whole topic of military employment is it depends. Um, in general, if you want to attack high value targets, either stationary structures of high importance or what is a major concern for all NATO forces, high-end air defense assets. These anti-access area denial weapons that deny huge amounts of airspace to you and essentially make the use of conventional forces like we used to know them almost prohibitive. If you want to tackle that problem, then with the weapons available at this point in time, weapons like Scalp, Storm Shadow, Apache, Taurus, they are the way to go. And they are best employed in large numbers. Essentially, it's a similar type of tactical problem that you see with all the UAVs, cruise missiles, drones coming every night across the border from the Russian forces. It's a similar, not the same, but it's a similar tactical problem. And I was earlier talking about you can employ Taurus one way or the best way. And essentially, all these weapons, American JASM, same thing. Essentially, you have to view these as one big kind of more or less the same weapon. And if you employ them in a tactically sound and intelligent way, they can be very decisive weapons, especially in a first day, first week kind of scenario where you need to kick in the door or at least put a gap into the defensive uh, to give you some form of freedom to operate. And that as one tier in conjunction with 5th-gen platforms as a second tier will make even very complex scenarios like we see in Ukraine or you see, for example, in Kaliningrad, will make them manageable. At least as long as we think conventional war.
Mm.
The big danger, at least theoretically, that is implied in all of this is that if you push your opponent too much and his projection of what will happen the next week and the week after that is not really good, then that could make him go an alternative route that would be not very good.
Okay, final question for you then. And this is really drawing on all your experience as a weapons school instructor, 3,000 hour Tornado IDS pilot, and obviously somebody who is keeping up with current affairs and knows what's happening in Ukraine. And it's just a hypothetical. So, low level. You mentioned 5th gen. There are some people who think if there were a peer adversary war with China, Russia, or whatever, and I know Germany has just built its first its first Lightning, its first F-35. So you are joining the ranks of 5th gen operators. But even with those, that low level will have to be a thing. And of course, for 4.5 gen and 4 gen, then low level is essential. One of the things that I notice when I talk to Strike Eagle community, and this was on the channel fairly recently, where one of them was talking about the fact that they don't train to TF anymore. They don't do night TF. The NavFleer system that they normally use is broken. They don't get the spare parts for it. The TF doesn't work because they can't get the spare parts for it. So it feels like that community at least has really left that low-level piece behind. What are your views on the likelihood then that against a peer adversary, low level will be required? Do you think it's a mistake to leave that skill set behind? Do you think it's a mistake to leave the capabilities, the equipment that makes it possible behind? What's your view on that whole piece?
Well, I think that low-level operations are just an integral part of any military aviation application. And it was not practiced or allowed to decline for a number of reasons. One is threat mitigation, because it's just a very dangerous proposition. Because any guy that can hold a gun and point it in the air, there is some likelihood that he will score the golden BB and you are on the receiving end of it.
Mm.
And you were talking a lot about risk appetite. And the tactical scenarios we've seen in the last 30 years just, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, were just not important or critical enough for people to accept that risk. The Brits could have continued to operate at low level in Iraq, but they just decided, we don't want to live with that kind of loss rate. Fair enough. But in those 30 years, especially GBAT systems have improved to a point
If you enjoyed this clip and want more, you can go to 10percenttrue.com, hit subscribe, you get early ad-free access to all my content. Appreciate your support.